In a serene Indian village surrounded by golden fields and rolling hills, life unfolded at its own unhurried pace. 16-year-old Pooja was the spark of her group of friends, her lively personality and radiant smile making her a delight to everyone. Her long, black hair, often braided with care, added to her charm. But behind her carefree demeanor was a lack of focus on studies, much to the worry of her mother, Sarita. Sarita, a strong-willed woman in her early 40s, had raised Pooja alone after her husband's untimely death. With her graying hair tied neatly into a bun and clad in simple, traditional saris, she was the epitome of resilience and discipline. She believed education was Pooja's ticket to a better life and had devoted everything to ensure her daughter's future. One sunny morning, as Pooja packed her school bag, Sarita handed her the lunchbox with a firm reminder. "Stay focused on your studies today. No distractions, Pooja." "Yes, Ma," Pooja said, nodding, though her thoughts wandered elsewhere. At the school gate, Pooja met her friends, who were brimming with excitement about the village fair. "Let us skip school today," one friend urged. "The fair's only here for a day. We'll have so much fun." Pooja hesitated briefly but couldn't resist the pull of vibrant stalls, sweet jalebis, and the giant Ferris wheel. By midday, she was at the fair, her long braid undone as she laughed and twirled, soaking in the festivities. That evening, Pooja returned home, cheeks flushed with joy. Sarita was waiting at the door, her arms crossed and her sharp eyes noticing faint traces of gulal on Pooja's clothes. "Where were you?" Sarita asked, her voice calm but piercing. "At school," Pooja stammered, avoiding her mother's gaze. "Don't lie to me," Sarita said sternly. "You went to the fair, didn't you?" Pooja's head dropped in shame. Sarita's disappointment was evident as she spoke, her voice heavy. "I've sacrificed so much to send you to school. Skipping classes for a fair? You've disrespected everything I've worked for." That night, as the oil lamp flickered, Sarita sat on the wooden cot, deep in thought. In her lap lay a pair of scissors and a razor. Her heart was heavy, but she knew she had to teach Pooja a lesson that would leave a lasting impression. The next morning, Sarita called Pooja into the sunlit courtyard. A wooden stool sat in the center, casting a faint shadow. Sarita stood beside it, holding the scissors and razor with a resolute expression. Pooja's steps faltered as she approached. "Ma, what's going on?" "Sit down," Sarita commanded. "Why, what are you going to do?" Pooja asked, fear creeping into her voice. "This is your punishment," Sarita said firmly. "Your hair is your pride, isn't it? Today, you'll learn that actions have consequences, and pride must sometimes be sacrificed for discipline." Tears welled up in Pooja's eyes. "No, Ma. Please, don't cut my hair. I promise I'll never skip school again." Sarita's face softened briefly, but her resolve remained unshaken. "Sit down, Pooja. This is for your own good." Reluctantly, Pooja lowered herself onto the stool, clutching its edges. Her thick, black hair gleamed in the morning sun. Sarita stood behind her, running her fingers through it one last time. With a decisive snip, the first lock of hair fell into Pooja's lap. The sound was deafening in the quiet courtyard. Pooja gasped, fresh tears streaming down her cheeks. "Ma, please stop," she sobbed. Sarita continued, cutting more of Pooja's hair. The once long, beautiful locks formed a dark pile on the ground. When the scissors had done their job, Sarita stepped back. "Rajesh!" she called out. Rajesh, the village barber, arrived shortly with his tools. A quiet man in his 50s, he glanced at Pooja with understanding. Sarita gestured to her daughter. Give her a clean shave. No, Ma. Please don't shave my head. Pooja cried, trembling on the stool. Sarita knelt before her, placing a firm hand on her shoulder. This is for you to remember, Pooja. One day, you'll understand why this had to be done. Rajesh wetted Pooja's uneven hair with a damp cloth, the coolness making her shiver. He applied shaving foam to her head, the stark white lather contrasting against her dusky skin. Pooja closed her eyes, tears spilling as the razor began its work. Each stroke of the blade against her scalp left her feeling more exposed. The once familiar sensation of her thick hair was replaced by the strange smoothness of her bare scalp. Sarita watched silently, her arms crossed. Her heart ached for her daughter, but she stood firm, knowing this lesson was necessary. As Rajesh finished, he wiped her head clean, revealing a smooth, pale scalp. Pooja hesitantly touched her head, her fingers trembling. Sarita stepped forward, her voice softer now. This isn't just about your hair, Pooja. It's about responsibility, respect, and valuing the opportunities you've been given. That evening, Pooja sat at her study table, her head smooth and her heart heavy with resolve. The pile of hair from the courtyard was gone, but the lesson remained. Weeks later, Pooja had transformed. She excelled in her studies, her shaved head a constant reminder of her mother's love and discipline. One evening, as Pooja walked home from school with her books, the setting sun reflected off her smooth scalp. Sarita stood at the door, her arms open. Pooja ran to her, her heart filled with gratitude. Thank you, Ma. I understand now. Sarita smiled, embracing her daughter tightly. I knew you would. And from that day forward, Pooja carried the lesson and her mother's love in her heart.